Okay, so this is Digital Wormholes by Elizabeth O'Neill. You're in a science fiction movie. Small wormholes have begun to appear in ordinary places, 2 feet from your face, atop a light pole, over the neighbor's door, on the dashboard of the car rounding the street corner. You encounter them wherever you go. They don't transmit matter, they won't vacuum you up and shoot you to another planet, but they're extracting facsimiles of your image and your voice and sending them elsewhere. Versions of you are continuously flowing through these wormholes, yet you yourself only get flashes of information about what's going on. You see some of the wormholes, but you can't see others. Even when you can see a wormhole, you can't tell what's actually getting transmitted. Full conversations, your heart rate and map of your blood flow, images taken from 100 meters away, so detailed that they show the pores of your skin. You can't tell when a wormhole is operational, and these being wormholes connecting potentially distant points in space-time, you don't know where or when the data will go. It could pop up tomorrow, next year, or on your deathbed. It may go to London or Beijing, your employer or your cousins, law enforcement, or a public that will recognize you as you walk down the street. The people who receive these representations of you may keep them as long as they like. They may do with them whatever they wish. They manipulate the representations so you appear to do or say grotesque things for their own amusement, to upset you, for blackmail, or to damage your reputation. I broadcast my face, my likeness, and my voice on Twitch for hours at a time. They should have plenty of opportunity to deep fake me as much as they want at this point. That was one of the things I was like, am I going to just agree to being perfectly deep faked? And the answer was yes, because I don't think I can stop it at this point anyway. If they want to deepfake me, they're going to be able to do it. So, you know what? Who cares if I stream on Twitch and make it perfectly available to someone to basically make a copy of me someplace else? The wormholes are a metaphor, the scenarios not science fiction. Every day you are subject to cameras and other sensors whose presence you cannot reliably detect and whose intended purposes, let alone illicit uses, you cannot reliably ascertain. How the material gathered could be used against you in the future, combined with other information and processed using AI techniques, we have no way of beginning to guess. In sum, we face a socio-technical world of information gathering systems that's a lot more mysterious than the world anyone encountered a few hundred years ago or even a few decades ago. Is that true? Is the world more mysterious now than it used to be? I don't know. This is just hyperbole, but yeah, this is modern, contemporary hyperbole. Oh my god, modern life is so much crazier than it used to be. I don't know, you had crazy things back in the day. This is just, I wish Shane was here all of a sudden. Is there a word for being anti-historical, like contemporaneism? Like, you think the contemporary world is always the most fascinating and, best. Even though in the past it was just what's it, because, anti-historicalism. There should be a pro-contemporaneism or an anti-historicalism term, because this drives me. This is one of these funny things. I'm always thinking that people always think you're at the cusp of the craziness. People don't realize you were always at the cusp of craziness, and every day in human history was the latest day in human history. There should be some. I'm anti this idea that somehow we are so much different from the people in the past. Recency bias, yes, but I'm talking about anti-historical recency bias, a much bigger recency bias, yes, but I'm talking about a much more global thing, anti-historicalism would be a terribly worded phrase. It has to be much more catchy than anti-historicalism, thinking that we are always at the cutting edge and it's much crazier nowadays. But yeah, I mean, recency bias plays into it, I think that's right. God, I can't even think anymore. Streamer brain's kicking in. Alright. How do you say suck it old farts in Latin? I mean, the dick jokes that they have from the graffiti in ancient Rome probably include suck it old farts, I can almost guarantee the dick graffiti says suck it in Latin in the ancient Roman ruins. Seriously. As Nissenbaum has observed, a principle of reciprocity, information flows bidirectionally, and principle of notice, subjects normally are aware when others see them, have historically operated in the background of our practices of interpersonal observation. That's fair. The etiquette is completely different now. This is a good point. Like, the idea that you knew when stuff was happening in the past is kind of new. You don't know exactly now, but that's a new thing. But that doesn't make they always had new problems in the past, but this is just new now. If a human nearby is watching you, you can usually see them watching you. If they are close enough to listen to you, you can often hear them too. If you cannot, it may be because they are being sneaky or peeping or doing something else that we characterize in pejorative terms to discourage the behavior. We are highly attuned to the presence of others' eyes on us. We can detect another person's gaze unconsciously. By comparison, when ubiquitous cameras or other sensors replace physically present human perceivers, we're in an alien world. We can't rely on our instincts to tell us when we're in danger. At the same time, given the newness, complexity, and fast-changing nature of our circumstances, we're also not capable of reasoning through what hazards we might be facing at any given moment. That was always the case. You always never knew what new, what's the line from Lord of the Rings? Again, I need Shane for this. What new devilry is this? Like, this is always a new thing. There's always some new devilry. But yeah, but it's still just as bad nowadays. What new devilry is this? Who cares? It's always new. But it's always some problem. Action must be taken to buttress the epistemic position of the potential censor subject. To begin with, more must be done to ensure that the subject can tell that she is being observed. Even in the case where individuals voluntarily bring cameras and microphones into their own homes, the design of their sensors is inadequate. In 2020 and 2021, a time of obligatory online meetings and courses, it has become quite clear how difficult it is for people to continuously monitor whether the cameras or microphones in their vicinity are transmitting or not. I don't have a webcam on my main computer. As you can see, this is a storeroom. I don't have in my room over there. I do not have a camera, so I know I'm not getting monitored. Thus, we have cases like the mother that inadvertently exposed herself to her daughter's elementary school class, and the politicians and journalists that have unintentionally appeared naked or engaged in sexual activities in meetings. Worse than the accidental operation of these digital wormholes are the cases of purposeful hijacking. For example, the many cases in which personal cameras have been hijacked for the purpose of obtaining footage of people undressed or in compromising circumstances for the sexual gratification of the hacker or for so-called sextortion. Then there are the cases where the censors are imposed on people against their preference and sometimes without their knowledge. For example, in restaurants and stores, workplaces, institutional settings, classrooms, public spaces, bathrooms, and so on. I mean, my aunt got a extortion thing saying that some hacker said they got into my aunt's webcam on her iPad and said that they were going to extort her. And she got all freaked out, of course. I just said, you know what? There's no guarantee they actually got in and got anything. They're just telling you that. So this may just be a spam email. And B, even if they do it, what's the chance that they're actually going to do anything and cause any trouble for you? I told them, just get bent. And that's what she did, and nothing happened. But the fact that you could do that is it's very common. One option is to follow an epistemic balancing principle for sensor design and use, with the aim of returning the sensor subject to the condition in which information reciprocity and notice are enforced. That's interesting. How would we have to alert people that you're being watched by cameras? For any sensor capable of collecting information about identifiable human persons or protected groups of persons, it must be immediately obvious to any potential sensor subjects whether the sensor is operating, the sensor's range, and what kind of data is being collected. And there must be a procedure by which possible sensor subjects can easily acquire more information about how the sensor operates, the intended uses of the data gathered, and if applicable, when the data will be destroyed. The reason we need such a principle is that the functioning of interconnected digital sensors diverges so significantly from the functioning of the traditional interpersonal interactions in which our norms in psychology originated. Well, this is never going to happen. This is like nearly impossible nowadays, but it's a good idea that people would be able to be notified that their likeness has been stored in a database and that they could have it removed or whatever, according to whatever. So if I walk down the street and say like your neighbor or somebody here outside of a building has one of the Ring cameras, so like it goes to Amazon basically, or my cousin has Waze cameras, and so the data is getting bounced off a server in China because Waze is a Chinese company. Yeah, so like that government, Amazon, these giant multinational people, how would you like be able to be like, yo, you've got a camera in your house, I want my data deleted? But I mean, if it's talking about Waze like my cousin has, I mean, what kind of international law would that require? I mean, that would be like, this is never gonna happen. It's a nice thought, but like, the idea we could pull this off is just like crazy. Now, the good idea here is that this is an interesting way of looking at it from this epistemic and interpersonal interactions. How we know how to interact with each other is an interesting way of talking about this stuff. And so, because interconnected digital sensors are so different from the traditional interpersonal interactions. So how do we deal with this new interactive world? I don't know, but this is a good question. But I mean, what they're suggesting here is never going to happen. So we have to think of, but is this a good starting point, I guess, is the question here. Like, is this the right sort of question we should be asking? That we have to think of a better etiquette to deal with digital sensors, because they have no etiquette at the moment. They just exist and they gather, but they are not asking permission. They're not accessing any sort of well, they're accessing all sorts of data, and so it's like, this is bad. Author says, I don't have a complete solution for the digital wormhole problem, the proliferation of mysterious information collecting systems, but I do want to highlight one small piece of the solution. A simple, reliable technology that already exists and yet has not been made standard issue, namely the physical slider or lens cap that can be used to cover cameras on laptops, phones, TVs, and similar devices. Yeah, but you can just use a piece of tape. That's not a big deal. Presumably, this technology has not been made standard issue, not even on personal devices, because the public does not yet recognize the extent of the dangers posed by proliferating sensors. That's 100% true. People do not appreciate how much of their data is going and how much money people are making on their data. Among other things, various device producers have repeatedly claimed that their software or other internal unobservable elements of their products will suffice to give device users full control over their cameras, which is of course not true, but they say that. For instance, some promise that their cameras cannot be activated without an indicator light also turning on. An Apple support article from 2020 regarding MacBook states, you will always know when the camera is on. Yet multiple instances in which people have managed to activate device cameras without the associated indicator light suggest a security cat and mouse game in which we naive users are not in a position to tell whether or not the internal design of the device will protect us at any given moment. The physical slider easily addresses the problem of how the user and any other people in the vicinity of a camera can be confident that the device is not collecting visual representations of them. With a physical slider, one can tell at a glance from across a room whether a webcam is covered or not. If one is using one's phone in a crowd, one can easily communicate to those in the vicinity that they are not being recorded. A physical slider slams the wormhole shut. Not true. How do you know that what you see with your eyes is not what the camera sensor sees with the camera sensor eyes? The camera sensor can see a wider range of light than human eyes. So what looks like it is closed is not necessarily closed to that sensor. Case in point, night vision. Computers can see things at night. It looks like, but we can't see it. So what looks like like something that is black is covering the camera. That doesn't mean that the camera can't see right through that at a different wavelength than we can see through. So this is not a solution, like at all. Like you would have to cover every camera with something you trusted to be opaque. I mean, maybe a physical slider that looked really like beefy, but you couldn't necessarily trust that. And the fact that like every camera would have one of these, again, does this author know how many cameras exist out there right now? You can't replace every security camera. Like, it's just not happening. Unfortunately, cameras on personal devices are just one small part of the digital wormhole problem. Society still faces the question of what to do about the proliferation of microphones and other types of sensors, thermal, LiDAR, radar, infrared, chemical, radio tomography, ultrasonic. I mean, this is a Google Pixel 6. I got a reasonably new phone. We are carrying these things in our pockets with us constantly. Do you think you actually have control over that thing? No. No, you don't. You know what software's on there? No, you don't. Even the best open source phones have blobs because they can't get companies to make hardware that doesn't take closed source software. It's like, for all I know, there might be one or two phones that are even possible to manufacture that actually are fully open source. But like, you just have one with you all the time. It's like, you can go get yourself a dumb phone. Do you even know what's in your dumb phone? Like a flip phone? You don't. What's up, Skooga? Welcome in. If you have any questions, let me know. I just read philosophy stuff and sometimes play Minesweeper. So we're reading a paper on a metaphor for the current problem of recording technology in contemporary society. Continuing. For some of these, in contrast with cameras that can be physically blocked, it may be that there is no technology mechanism that simultaneously can ensure and clearly and reliably indicate that the sensor is not operating. That's what I was saying. Like, you just covering something up doesn't mean it can't see through the cover. This would mean that we are forced to rely on alternative mechanisms, for example, laws or norms, for protecting the rights and interests of the potential subjects of these sensors. With regard to cameras, too, many questions remain. What should be done about high-definition cameras that are located so far from the subject that they cannot be seen? Well, it's very simple. You have to ban telescopes. That's the obvious answer. There's also a critical question about what to do about the easy availability of undetectably small and hidden cameras, which have facilitated a terrible problem with spy cam pornography. Greetings. For example, filming in bathrooms, hotels, and changing rooms. Again, if there is no technological mechanism that can assure potential censor subjects of a lack of wormholes in their vicinity, society may have to rely on alternative protective mechanisms such as severe criminal punishment for people who create or transmit non-consensual pornography. And we do this and it doesn't stop crap, because the whole point of them being so small is that they don't get caught. They don't get found. And so, like, yeah, we're going to need different things. There was just a viral video about an ad about a device to go find these things, something that would sense digital recording devices. So, is this going to actually be legally enforceable? Or is the legal enforcement actually going to make a difference? I doubt it, because a lot of times, even if you find the sensor, can you actually tie the sensor to who is getting all the data? Not necessarily. I mean, if it's an obvious scumbag, like in a rental thing, and they're like filming their guests, yeah, you might be able to find that. But if it's like an institution, like a big building, it might be much harder to track down who's doing it. Like, someone puts it in, it gets transmitted across the internet, and you'll never find the person or where the data went. Until much stronger technological, legal, and other precautions are put in place, sensors will remain digital wormholes. To place an internet-connected baby monitor in the nursery is to open a wormhole. Installing a doorbell camera unleashes a wormhole on one's neighborhood. With every robot comes wormholes. In the absence of lens covers, a crowd of people with cell phones is a crowd escorted by wormholes. Where possible, then, sensor designers should at minimum supply users with the technological means for ensuring and indicating to others that a sensor is non-operational. Where this is not possible, society will need to develop alternative ways to protect censored subjects, given that our traditional psychological mechanisms for detecting observers and anticipating the consequences of observation no longer suffice to protect us. So here's the question. Is this wormhole metaphor? Because this is the whole point of this article, is to call these things digital wormholes. Like all the sensors, like the webcam that is literally just like a foot away from my head right here. What's fun is I've got two monitors and a separate webcam. So there's actually two webcams like right here. I only use one of them, of course, but then I've got another one like right over here that, actually I think one of them's on, but it's not actually recording. But no, both of these are on. But like, is this a good metaphor for this? So it's like I'm getting sucked through here and gone to Twitch, and so Amazon has all this data on me, and then it's getting transmitted to all you viewers out there, and then you're doing whatever you want with the data because that's what you can do. And it's like, is this wormhole metaphor a good idea? And I think the idea here is just to make digital technology sound scarier. This is like, you don't know what you're doing. This is scary technology. Let's call it a wormhole because wormholes are scary from sci-fi. Is that helpful? I'm not sure. I think it's just like you should be more afraid of the technology. So what would have been better if you're just looking for a fear factor is to show all the scary things that can be done with the technology, not that it's proliferated and everywhere and we just don't understand it. So the question is wormholes. Like what they're trying to indicate is that we don't have any idea where this stuff goes. That's fair, but this is just an argument based off fear. That's not a bad thing. I just don't think it's particularly effective. I mean, what really are we gaining from calling these things wormholes in this case? Maybe a little bit of understanding of that we don't really know where it's going, but is that doing a lot of work? I'm not sure. Now, what I do like about this article is that there are the etiquette side of it, where they're saying, look, the way we interact with other agents in this world is usually because we can hear, if we can hear them, they can hear us. If we can see them, they can see us, unless they're being sneaky or peeping. Then we already have ways of dealing with that. But this idea that we are not following our normal etiquette with our digital technology and sensor technology is a problem. And so the fact that the interconnected digital sensors diverges so significantly from the functioning of the traditional interpersonal interactions, that's the thing. We need a new etiquette for this stuff. And the idea that we're going to make laws about this to enforce it, that never stopped anyone, really. We have to socially reorganize ourselves to not be doing crappy things with this sort of stuff, because the idea that we're going to like require manufacturers to put like covers on them which are going to be easily removed, or force them to like digital cameras to show that that they're working, and that like you're gonna have to be able to like obviously see where the data is going, that's never gonna happen, like never ever ever. So that's the question. What exactly is the suggestion here? Because it seems like all the suggestions here are not very realistic. But if the idea is just to scare us, okay, it's a little scary. But what is going to be the real solution? Which where what they're talking about here in the last paragraph, where this is not possible, society will need to develop alternative ways to protect censored subjects, that's all of us, given that our traditional psychological mechanisms for detecting observers and anticipating the consequences of the observation no longer suffice to protect us. This is the big problem. But what I like about this is that it talks about how we actually interact with each other and how we fail to interact with the technology. And we need to maybe humanize the technology in some way to really be able to understand how to interact with it again. So like, maybe we have to put like sensors on robots more. Maybe robots with sensors would scare the heck out of us, and that would actually do it. But if we aren't actually thinking about the social existence of these sort of systems. That's where we have to go, because the laws ain't gonna prevent like bad actors from doing stuff. Bad actors are gonna break the laws. They don't care about the laws. That's why they're bad actors. So we have to find some other way to, like, you know, get people to act in ways that are not so scummy. Like threatening them with legal stuff when nowadays you can be across the world and hack someone's webcam is not going to scare someone that is not bound by the laws of this country. I mean, why would it? They're not subject to the laws of this country. All that's going to happen is we'll cut off their connection. They'll hack someone new. That's what's going to happen. It's not even uncommon. Okay, so what we need to do is, of course, people do not recognize the dangers, and secondly, understand how we actually interact with things. Like, this is such a weird thing, such a different thing, where I am sitting in this room with a webcam right here, and I'm talking to you folks out there, and you're talking back to me with chat, and I'm playing music, and I've got like buttons in front of me, and all sorts of things, like a lot of data. Like, that's different. So it's like, how do we actually have these sort of, well, the word's parasocial, but we need like another word, like para-technological interactions, where it's not it's a social interaction with the technology. So that's really what this paper is calling for, and I don't know enough about this. We really need to do better at it. So we need a new social etiquette to deal with the technology. Otherwise, we're just going to let the tech run wild, and that's just going to cause problems, more and more problems. Okay, fun little paper though. Digital wormholes. I don't think it accomplished its goal. It wasn't a bad paper, but like, it was a little bit of fun just from AI and society to wrap up the night, because I'm getting streamer brain now and I'm losing it. Anybody have anything else to say?